I'm sitting here with a very cool guy, Tim McKenna. First of all, good to see you, Tim.
Good to see you. Always a pleasure to
I
be.
can't wait to hear some of your stories. So Tim McKenna is a senior production manager for Live Nation, among other things. Talk about, if you can, you said it yourself, it's been 45 years. What was the rock scene like back then?
In those days, there were a lot of local bars, the Rat and the Bun Ratties.
Oh, yeah.
And Paradise was built kind of as a showcase club. And you won't believe it from looking at it now, but everybody in the early days sat at a table. There was 550 people, and you had to sit down. And people started moving the tables and chairs around, and eventually they nailed the chairs and tables to the floor. Okay. And they got a lot of heat about it, but that was to maintain their capacity because they wanted to have a lot of people here.
So opening night, Liv Taylor and the Poussette Dart Band.
Right.
And the rock scene in general back then, how would you compare it to what it's like now?
In those days, bands would tour to support a record.
Right.
People nowadays tour to support their family.
Right.
Because the dynamic and the economics of the music industry have changed, and so bands now tour, as their main source of income.
Well, as a senior production manager, you would be related to bringing in all the equipment that the bands needed. Did that come under your jurisdiction?
Well, when I started in the lighting department. My first day in the music business was also my first day here at the Paradise. Well, I was dating a woman who was the monitor engineer at the Paradise, and I was waiting for her to get off work. The production manager comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Tim, while you're waiting for her to get off work, why don't you help us load the truck?" And so that was my first day. The next thing I know, I'm out in the alley behind the Paradise, pushing Billy Joel's piano up a ramp of a semi.
Billy Joel on this stage.
Billy Joel on this stage. Yeah. That was my first day.
Wow. Is there one concert, one night, that over the years you've always told people you wouldn't believe this night at the Paradise? And if so, what was it?
Well, it has to be when U2 opened up for Baruga Band. The place was packed, and U2 plays, and easily half the people left. And the Columbia Records guys are just like beside themselves.
Because the headliner hasn't come on yet.
The headliner hasn't come on yet. People are streaming out because they had just come to see U2. They couldn't care less about Baruga Bandit.
And it's cool that some of these acts go on to become these international superheroes, and just like 21 Pilots did recently, they like to go back to the roots because this is how it all began for most of these rock bands, intimate, environments like the Paradise.
Yeah, and Bono, I can remember him at Gillette Stadium, talking about playing at the Paradise.
Tim, how would you describe the state of the rock and roll scene in Boston right now?
The state of music is strong. People love live music, Bill. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things to do is I go up in there's a booth up there with the soundboard.
Oh, yeah.
For the onstage sound.
Yeah.
And I go up there and I look out and I see that girl, who's listening to that singer, who's singing that song that got her through that tough time in 10th grade.
Yeah.
Because she knows that the singer gets her,
Wow.
That's why I work 14-hour days. That's why I work 16-hour days, is because it's a magic thing happening there. There is nothing that replaces the experience that you get at a live show.
Well, you know what, Tim, and I couldn't help but notice, this could be a tribute to you, but the Paradise looks as good now as it ever did, possibly even better.
The one thing that, it looks better because of this. Right there's a giant pole. It used to be center stage. And every singer would look out at that giant pole. And everybody, oh, we hate this, we love the Paradise, we hate the giant pole. And the present owners of the Paradise, our present partners, they came in and they said, "Hey, why don't we just move the stage?" We had been looking at the problem wrong. And so we moved the stage. The sidelines are better than they have ever been. So, that's...
But again, the stage is sacred ground, so moving the stage at the Paradise Rock Club is an amazing move.
It was an amazing move, but it was, it was done for the people, and it was done for the right reasons.
Listen, folks, if you haven't been to the Paradise Rock Club here in Boston in a while, you got to get back here to the Paradise. And by the way, it so happens it's presented by Citizens.